right. It's 2:01, so we're going to kick it off. So over the last week or so, a number of folks have said that they had submitted tickets and IoT wasn't able to let them get into the supplier portal. And we're here to say you are experiencing an actual problem with the supplier portal. It's not just on your end. There have been some technical issues with IDOA supplier portal linked to a hack of a timekeeping software from 2 years ago that's part of the PeopleSoft system. And rather than continue to ask everybody to keep trying to log into this system and get things submitted through there and get the files through there, we're making some adjustments that we're going to talk about today. And we're going to send out over email as well to make sure everyone can get in there and get what they need. Because it's been a kind of a consistent theme. I can't get into the supplier portal, so we're going to talk about that today. The net is you're going to have a little bit extra time too, because we have to change the way you can submit these proposals. And I'm going to give the floor to Teresa in a moment to talk about the adjusted submission instructions, and then Lindsay's going to talk a little bit about how that impacts our calendar. But the net result is that you're gonna have a little bit more time, and we're gonna put all of the files up on the DMHA website in addition to on the supplier portal, because we're not trying to hide everything. We're trying to get everything out in front of everybody. So to kind of reiterate, today we're going to talk about how the submission of the proposals is going to be adjusted a little bit to make it a little easier, hopefully. We're going to put everything in multiple places and send out an email blast to everybody who responded to that RFI to let them know to check. We're changing the way the submission instructions work, and we're putting things on the DMHA website too as well, so you can get everything a lot easier. So I'm going to give the floor to Teresa to explain how the submission is going to work.
Yes, thank you, Matt. And yes, first and foremost, I want to apologize to everyone that's been having problems. Did not realize till last I don't know, it may have been like last Thursday, that we actually had a problem with our and people.
Hey, Teresa, I don't think we can hear you if you are talking. I don't know if you're not muted, but there may be a connectivity issue. Okay, just to confirm, no one can hear Teresa, right? Okay. Teresa, if issues resolve, I will yield the floor to you. But in the absence of silence and reading the page, I will attempt to present what you were going to present. So when the IDOA has developed a new submission procedure for any type of submission over the next couple of weeks while the supplier portal is experiencing technical difficulties. We don't want anyone to be unable to submit it. And the new step is a two-step procedure. The first is to submit a form that you'll get a link to, and it'll be linked in the addendum, and we'll put this deck up online, and we'll push it out in an email. But there's a form that you have to fill out that essentially tracks the executive summary and attestation form you're already filling out. And that lets us know, hey, we're going to be submitting a proposal. Be on the lookout because it's coming. And then the second step, again, this will all be in writing in an amendment to the RFS. It'll be up on the website, is to send in to mail in physical flash drives that have all of the files on them that you otherwise would have been putting on that supplier portal. We don't want you to put it on the supplier portal because, as I mentioned, it's having some problems, and heaven forbid you submit it all fine, you think it looked good, and then it turns out the machine's broken and it's not coming in. So, it's better safe than sorry. We're going to ask you to put it on physical drives and to send in those physical drives. You still need to be a registered bidder, which in order to have a contract at the end and all that other stuff. That was how you were logging into the supplier portal to begin with. But you don't need to log into anything anymore to send us what we're asking for. We're going to put all of the RFS materials on DMHA website out in the open, not behind a login wall. You can still log in and pull the stuff down. We're putting it there too. But it's this kind of two-step process. There are some, it's really it's very important that you bring in, that you have these flash drives sent in though. And I believe there's some language in the addenda, and hopefully Teresa can log back on in a second, but we prefer that they're sent in either USPS or FedEx or some sort of UPS or something. Hand delivering them is a little rough because there's not like a clear log for a way for those to come in. But
they can't hand deliver them, Matthew.
Brilliant, thank you. You're back. Please take over for me.
Yes, I'm back. There's no hand delivery. You just have to, the only way to get them is to mail them in.
Can we use courier services though, like FedEx and UPS?
They can use, yes, they can use courier services. Yes, they just can't hand deliver them.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, and I may have misspoken. Like there is such a thing as a courier service who will take something from you and like hand deliver it like they would to a courthouse. But we would want them to use someone like a delivery service like a FedEx or a UPS or a DHL.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
And is there anything on this page? Well, we're going to hit the submission date in a second. We're tweaking it a little bit to your advantage because we're throwing you a curveball here. So we're gonna get to that in the very next slide. Teresa, is there anything else on this slide though that you would want to hammer home?
The only thing I want to say is that since there is now a two-part process, part 1 and part 2, you have to meet both of those criterias to be considered. So don't miss part 1 and think that you could miss part 1 and just send in your proposal. You have to those forms on the procurement submission form site have to be submitted also by the submittal date. So part 1 and part 2 have to be met. And that's all I would add to what you said, Matthew.
So there was a question in the chat, Teresa, about the effective dates. And we're going to talk about that dates in a second. But when it comes to the submission of the flash drives, step 2, that is receipt, not postmarked, right?
That is receipt, correct.
The first step is an electronic submission, so there's not a material difference between submission and receipt, but it's worth noting that it is receipt for the second step. I also, I'm on the email list. We'll add you, Martha. We're not trying to hide the ball. We'll take down your email address and add it to the outgoing note. You are at an organization that was part of the RFI, so we'll make sure you're on there. To be strict is to be fair. And so just to hammer home what Teresa said, we really do need you to meet both of these deadlines. We cannot forgive missing these deadlines. It would be unfair to those that met it. And so, yes, no hand delivery, Susan. It is FedEx, UPS, DHL, one of these professional delivery services. IDOA is not equipped to receive a person walking in with flash drives. Why don't we, everyone also is kind of chomping at the dates. Why don't we go to the next slide and Lindsay can kind of explain the dates.
Thank you, everyone. And again, just to reiterate, thank you for your patience and engagement. And we will make sure this goes out beyond just even this webinar. But here are the dates. So the big thing, the November 15th is the part 1 submission form due date, which Matt and Teresa already talked about, is that electronic version of this submission. So that is still that November 15th date. The part 2 submission due date, which is the proposal submitted on flash drives, is what has been pushed back 5 days. So that is November 20th. By 3 p.m. is now the due date for those flash drives to be turned in. Just to go up a little bit, we're on the first 2. Those are today. So you are attending pre-proposal conference number 4. welcome. And this is also the deadline for those written questions. So you have 50 minutes to get any last ones in that you want to get answered. We will have those responses posted by November 6th. The first response batch we did confirm is posted, correct, Teresa?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
So we got a lot of great questions in. We, as a team, moved through those. Those are now available for review to include in your responses for clarification. All right, so any questions on these due dates? Pause here.
Well, David has a question that I think Teresa can answer. Teresa, regarding the flash drives, is there any expectation about encryption or password protection?
There is, you can pass, well, when you do your electronic piece of it, it will ask you in the electronic piece if you want to password protect it. And if you do, you will give us the password there. You don't have to.
So David, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Looks like Jim has a question. Should we additionally include what is submitted on 11/15, example executive summary, on the flash drive with the other files?
You can. You mean the asset station and the executive summary? You can if you want. It's not necessary, but you can.
Okay, thank you.
Martha, November 20th is delivery date. Yes, it has to be received by November 20th.
Left side, yes.
And then Patrick had a question. Are previous proposal meeting recordings available? I believe these will now be posted in addition to these. Are these located as well on the DMHA website?
Well, we're working to get them posted on the DMHA website. We're looking to clone everything that is currently on the bidder information opportunities page where everything has been previously, and then post simultaneously in both places.
Yeah.
You will not be surprised to learn it's two different parts of the state that handle those things, and
Yeah.
so we're trying to get both trains running in parallel there.
I think Martha had a similar question. I think it's as soon as related to the posting of all the materials on DMHA website. That's as soon as possible. I don't know if we have an estimated time frame on that.
We're working with web services to get it up as quick as we can, and when it's up, we will email out everyone who submitted an RFI plus Martha, because I know you wanted your email on there, to let you know it's there and link to it. But it's
we
the
will let
same.
everybody know as soon as we can that it's up and that you can get the documents.
And Dawn had a question if there's an additional deadline for the bidder registration. I don't know that one. Teresa?
So,
is there I'm not sure I understand the question. Additional deadline for the
Dawn, are you with an organization that doesn't have a bidder ID?
I'm with Cummins Behavioral Health. I just saw that on the previous slide that it kind of looked like three parts: the procurement, and then the flash drive, and then bidder registration. So we may already have one. I just never heard if there was a due date for that part three.
There was never a due date per se.
Yeah.
You just needed to have a bidder ID to log into the portal where people were pulling down the RFS documents before. So ideally, everyone has crossed that bridge already, though it is, I guess, theoretically possible that someone is here today who never got those documents because they didn't have a bidder ID. And so you still need to get it, even though we're putting everything on the website as well.
Thank you.
So, Megan, the answered questions are already up among the RFS materials where they have historically been posted. As soon as we can get things cross-posted on the website, they will also be there, but they are among the RFS materials now.
I think we hit all of the questions in the chat. Any other questions for folks who either want to add them in the chat or come off mute? Okay, I think we can go to the next slide, which, as you can see here, just a review, the RFS package will be posted on DMHA's webpage for ease of access. It's going to be located there at that website below. It is on the CCBHC DMHA website. So this is already a pre-existing website with information about CCBHCs for Indiana. It will be posted there. That also want to remind you that no answers or information issued verbally at this conference is binding unless later issued in writing. So get those questions in the next 45 minutes because they are due today by 3 for the second round, and instructions there on how to submit those, and also the submission in the subject line. And I think that is all we have. So the rest of the time is to just continue to let questions trickle in. So I see a couple more came in. Ryan, can you check the links provided in the bidder portal for the previous recordings? They don't seem to work for us.
We'll take that note and pull it down. And we can, I think they'll be uploaded along with the on the DMHA website too. So if it's some reason we can't rule out the supplier portal being the source of that problem, as indicated by the theme of today's chat. So they it might be worth.
It is a portal problem.
Yeah.
I do think it is a portal problem, Matthew, because I can listen to them. They play fine. When I upload them to the portal, they do not play. So I'm not sure what's going on with our portal. I do apologize to everyone for this.
But I bet we can upload them to the website because that's not within the PeopleSoft ecosystem. So that they will be among the files for the RFS uploaded on the DMHA website too.
Yes.
And then just to get the last question in the chat, and then Martha will go to you. So the question in the chat's not related to the changes and addendums. Do you recommend and or require us to submit letters of support with the RFS? I will ask that you kindly submit that in writing as well. And also the requirements, there are not currently requirements in that language as far as what agencies use to support their application. Don't think we have any parameters on this, but my ACASA friends and Teresa confirm that.
I think there is a prompt in one of the templates that says, we would welcome letters of support from organizations in your community, but it is not framed as something mandatory. I think it's probably framed as something additive to be one of the ways you can demonstrate an understanding of the communities that you serve and a connectedness to those who serve that community with you.
Much better answer, Mark. Thank you. All right, Martha.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thanks for taking my question. So I'm submitting this in writing, but others may have had this question. And I know verbal responses aren't binding, but I'll ask it anyway. So most of the materials talk about the clinic-specific prospective payment system rate. But there is one document that has in attachment D, section 4, there is the expression, the state has selected the daily PPS 1 rate as the statewide CCBHC PPS rate, which made our revenue analysis team was looking at attachment J to verify we can do everything there. They were concerned that meant that there will be one rate that is the clinic rate for the state of Indiana. But it does look like every place else it's mentioned as a clinic specific rate. So I just want to assure them that there is not going to be one flat state rate.
It is a clinic specific rate. And there will, yes.
Okay. I was pretty sure, but I told them I'd ask the question. And as a follow-up to that, we have multiple clinic sites in our system. Would they each have a clinic rate, or would there be one rate for our system?
I would go ahead and submit that question via writing. I think I would want to kind of go back. I think how we've a lot of our questions on a larger entities with multi-sites is that the state is still working on how we will be managing that through the demonstration and beyond. And so many of these questions we don't have specific clarity on yet. However, submit it in writing and we'll get a group together to answer it as best as we can. Also, I know you mentioned submitting the other question in writing. Please do that as well.
Yeah, and the only other question I have, which is also in writing, but I'll ask it here just for the benefit of the group, is there's several places that talk about letters of support from current or potential partners. If we have an MOU, can that stand in as that we don't have to go get a letter of support if we have a standing MOU, correct?
I mean, we don't necessarily have, like, I mean, if there's whatever documents you would like to use for that, I would say if the MOU doesn't capture the full spirit of your collaboration, then that may be a benefit. However, we leave that to the agency on how they demonstrate those partnerships.
Yeah, there's two places where in a different attachment you talk about MOUs as evidence of the partnership. So
Sure.
I think we would use the MOU rather than trying to go to the effort of securing a letter pro forma from entities we already have a partnership with. So,
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The only other thing we'd throw in there is that even if there aren't existing MOUs, letters of support can be helpful for that as well.
Yeah.
So for potential partners is in that language.
Mm-hmm. And would you want the actual MOU attached or just as opposed to the letter of support?
As opposed to just saying you have an MOU?
Yeah, correct.
So I guess it's all, these are all paths to demonstrating kind of the strength of your community relationships. And at least in my opinion, the actual MOU would lend more color and credence to the strength of that relationship than just an acknowledgement that it exists.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
And then William Trowbridge has a question in the chat that likely IDOA friends can answer. So I don't know if Matt and Teresa, you just want to read it and take it. Sure,
Teresa, it's a question about, I believe that's the business proposal section where there's an ask for the certificate of authority. For Indiana corporations, will a certificate of existence be sufficient? I think Teresa, you're muted if you're answering.
Sorry, I was muted. The certificate of authority, if you're registered with the Secretary of State, that is the conducting business in Indiana official document. But you can ask this during question and answers, and I'll make sure that I review section 2. I don't have every section memorized. I apologize in the RFP. So if you can submit this during the question and answer, I'll be sure and look at the actual sections and get it answered for you. But I believe it's the Secretary of State is the document we would be looking for.
We recognize that for the large majority of our potential respondents to this, you are organizations in Indiana. A lot of these questions are of general application with procurements both like this, but also for commercial endeavors, like the state purchasing rock salt and office supplies. And so some of them are, we still want to know where you are and how much of an impact, how much you are in the state as opposed to split across multiple states. But things like this, recognize that they exist in these templates because they are uniformly helpful across all of the state's endeavors. And Martha Henn notes, Teresa, that in an earlier submission this year, IDOA permitted the certificate of existence. So this is helpful context, Martha. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
John
Yes,
had
thank you.
another, oh, sorry about that. John had another question on attachment C 2.3.3. Organizational financial information requests, most recent single audit or others audited financial statements for the 2 years most recently completed fiscal years. The first round of questions responded to a similar question as part of attachment J, but not C. If fiscal year 23 audit is not complete, may we submit audits for fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can't require you to have completed an audit freely for this. Attachment J, I believe, is the attachment that talks about, that wants to like get out in front of you now what we think we're going to need to work with, not just demonstration sites, but everybody who wants to become a CCBHC. That's all going to go into the hopper when it comes to helping work out the clinic specific prospective payment rate, right? Whereas attachment C is one of those uniform application procurement documents that asks for a number of information about the organization's formation and their finances. It just so happens, though, that the same thing comes up in both places. So it's a very good question.
We've covered all of the chat questions. Other questions? Okay, Mike?
Yes, thank you. So to clarify, we don't have to upload our submission online anymore to the portal?
Correct.
Okay, so that means we won't have to fill out the portal, right?
Correct.
All right.
For your purposes now, the portal is one of the two places. Well, at the moment, it's the only place. But once we get things cross-posted, the portal becomes where you can download documents.
Okay.
Right,
Thank
Teresa? There's no other thing where, yeah. You are not the only one having portal problems, and we're trying to make it so that everyone has equal access.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other final questions? Give everyone 32 minutes to submit in writing questions for us to answer. They will be posted by the 6th. And appreciate everyone's patience and efforts. There will be additional communication forthcoming, and we'll have these up on DMHA's CCBHC website as soon as we possibly can for easier access. Oh, looks like Jeff has a question right in under the wire.
Sorry, couldn't find the unmute button. There is a response within the first question and answers about financial reporting, and it says attachment J, those documents are not required. So I understand that, but on attachment C, 2.33, it asks for organizational financial information. It indicates audits in this. So there are to be no audits, even under 2.33, that need to be submitted.
So you should submit what is requested by attachment C in 2.33. It just so happens that what we're asking for with that prompt is also listed on attachment J. So I recognize that that's a little confusing and encourage you to submit this one in writing as well. But attachment J intrinsically requires the submission of nothing, but it does not overwrite the request for documents in attachment C.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you all for the time today. Again, you have 30 minutes to submit formally questions, and just appreciate all the patience and time. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Yes, thanks, everyone.